Hey there, everyone. My name is Mister Stu Perry. I am a child therapist, licensed clinical social worker, and autism spectrum disorder clinical specialist. And I am so excited that you have decided to tune in today. I am celebrating 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. If you are not following me on YouTube just yet, maybe you're watching on YouTube right now and you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. This is the channel that helps adults better understand kids so that kids and their caregivers thrive. And that's what I love to do. I love helping adults better understand kids because I see that so much frustration from being a parent or being a caregiver of children comes from just misunderstanding. Whether it be misunderstanding motives or just misunderstanding how children develop and different things about them, it's all just misunderstanding. And so if I can help adults better understand kids, I can help everybody's stress to come down, and I can also make sure that kids are supported, parents feel supported, child caregivers feel supported, and everybody can thrive. And that's what today is really going to be all about. Many of you have written in questions for me to answer. Like I said, in my everyday full-time job, I am a child therapist, but I also get to travel around the world and talk with parents and caregivers of children about all sorts of different things related to children's behaviors. I do keynote presentations and workshops that just help adults better understand kids. Today, I'm so excited to be able to help some of you with the questions that you wrote in, whether it be on YouTube that you sent me a direct message or on any of my social media channels. All of those social media channels are at Mister Stu TV. It's MISTERSTU TV. And if you think of the Mickey Mouse Club jingle, it's like MISTERSTU TV. There you go. And that's all the social media channels. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, all of them, Mister Stu TV. Check it out. But today I'm going to be talking through some of those questions that were sent in across all of those channels. And let's go ahead and jump in. Many of you are concerned about the children in your life, and I love that concern. I love that care, but I also want to make sure that those kids are supported and that you feel supported. So let's jump into this first question. Here it is. Dear Mr. Stu, I am writing to you as a concerned parent about my child's behavior. Recently, my child has been saying hurtful and hateful things towards me. That is something that so many of us can relate to. As a parent, I try my best to understand and support my child, but hearing these hurtful words is taking a toll on me emotionally. Just the other day, during an argument, my child called me names and said things that were completely out of character. I was shocked and hurt by their words, and I want to know what I can do to help in this situation. How can I handle my child's hurtful words and help them express themselves in a more respectful way? What could be causing this behavior? Any advice or guidance would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time and expertise. Well, thank you so much for writing in about that question. That is one that comes up a lot of times, and maybe you're watching this right now or listening to this right now, and you can relate to this parent. You're in an argument, or maybe you just say something that your child didn't like, and now they are spewing some hateful words at you. There's a few things that I can recommend. The first is not get caught up in the content, the words that the child is using, but try to see the message that they're trying to convey. Kids are not great with words, and it's because their brains haven't quite developed yet to help them understand the nuances in language. So they just kind of react with words the best that they know how. And if they're really angry, or if they at least think that they are really angry, then they're going to try to use the most angry words that they can think of. Not because it's the truth, but because it's what their brain is putting together because they haven't quite learned how to do it properly yet. So try to take out the specific words that the child is saying. If they say, I hate you, mommy, I want a new mom, that can feel very hateful and very hurtful. But really, the message that the child is trying to convey is, I'm angry with you right now. If a very young child, one who's in my office, I have very young children who will look at me and say, I just want to kill myself. And I do an assessment to make sure that they're okay. But really what that child is usually trying to convey to me is, I'm very sad right now. It's not so much about the specific words that they're sharing. And if you can remove those specific words and try to see the message beneath the words, that will help you accept this conversation a little bit more as something that's not a power struggle, where it's not you versus them or even them versus you. They're just upset about this situation. So you can think, okay, did I say something mean, or did I say something that they just don't like? Now, it doesn't mean that the child is able to speak to you that way. It doesn't mean that you should just accept it and not say anything about it. But in this moment, first what needs to happen is you need to let the child know that you understand their message. So if they're saying, I hate you, mommy, I want a new mom, I wish that you were never my mommy, whatever that might be, then what our job as the adult is to convey back to them, here's what you meant to say. I understand what you said. Here's what you meant to say. And the way you can reflect that back to them is, I know you're really upset with me right now. Because that's what they're actually trying to say. They're not trying to say, wish you weren't my mommy, I want another mommy. That's not the real message. The real message is, I'm upset with you right now. So if you can reflect that back to them and say, I know you're really upset with me right now, rather than feeding into the content, because a lot of times what will happen is a child will say, I hate you, mommy, I want a new mommy, I wish you were never my mommy. And then the parent will say back to them, well, fine, if you don't want me to be your mom, then I'll just take you somewhere, whatever it might be. And the child sees that their message wasn't received, or the child believes their message was received. Hey, I'm trying to convey to you that I'm angry with you. And the parent reacts negatively. The parent reacts in anger. So rather than feeding into the content, feeding into the actual words that are being said, try to feed into the message that the child is trying to convey, and then reflect back to them what that message is. If a child, to me, as a therapist, a young child says, I want to kill myself, then I can look back at them and I can say, I know it's a really, really tough time right now. And then I'll do my assessment and make sure that everything is safe. But the child just saying those words, it's the closest to the truth that they know how to do, but their brain hasn't figured out all of the nuances of language and all the real deep meanings of many words and many messages that they're saying. So try to not feed into that content. Try to reflect back to the child that their message has been received, and then just state back to them the way that they should have said it. So you can say, I know you're really upset right now, or I know you're really sad right now, or I know you wish that I would let you get the toy, whatever it might be. And that way you are communicating with your child. Your child is trying to use words, but they're not going to be good at it. And so you can reflect back to them, I know what you're trying to say. Here's what you are trying to say. And as you do that more, that's how your child's brain can start to say, oh, we don't have to go to these extremes every time. I don't have to say super hateful and super hurtful things to convey my message. I could just say it plainly. And as they learn to do that more and more, and as you reflect back to them more and more, their brain will start to put the pieces together. Thank you so much for that question. I hope that little glimpse into children's brains was helpful. And I hope that you're able to use that the next time that your child might be saying some things that really can either get under your skin or really break your heart. Let's go to question number 2. Dear Mr. Stu, I'm writing to seek your professional advice as a child therapist. My son has recently been exhibiting behavior that concerns me deeply. He seems to constantly argue with me and refuses to listen to my instructions or requests. Just the other day, I asked him to clean up his toys before dinner, and he started arguing with me about why he shouldn't have to do it. It escalated into a full-blown argument where we both ended up frustrated and upset. As a parent, I want to create a loving and respectful relationship with my child, but I'm struggling with this constant arguing. What can I do when my child won't stop arguing with me? How can I effectively communicate with him without getting into arguments? Your help would be greatly appreciated. Sincerely, a concerned parent. Well, thank you so much for this question. And this is another one that comes up all the time. Arguments with kids. And arguments with kids, especially when you're in the middle of one, can seem so pointless, so useless. And that's because they are. Arguments with children are just unnecessary. The first thing to remember is that you don't have to prove to your child that you are the one in charge. Or if you're a teacher or a child caregiver, you don't have to prove to the kids that you are the one who's in charge. You are the one who's in charge. Now, how well you do this whole being in charge thing, that's a whole other question. But you don't have to prove to the child, and the child does not have to verbally acknowledge that you win. My first tip in arguments with children is to remember that it takes two people to argue, and this argument can be over anytime you want it to be by you just ending the argument, refusing to argue. Just because a child doesn't verbally acknowledge that you are the one in charge, or the child doesn't verbally acknowledge that you get to make the decision, doesn't mean that it's not true that you are the one in charge and you are the one who gets to make the decision. So if you are arguing back and forth and going on and on and on, and you realize the only thing that we're arguing about is the fact that they won't acknowledge my authority, then it's time to end the argument. And you can end the argument by simply saying, I'm done discussing this. And if they continue, you just say back again, I'm done discussing this. And if they continue to try to argue, you can say back to them, I'm done discussing this. And maybe they start to say even more intense things, or they start to bring up things from the past, or they start to just mesh it all together because now they're frustrated that you won't continue the conversation. You look back at them and you say, I'm done discussing this. It takes two people to argue. So if you find yourself frustrated that you are getting into arguments with your child, stop arguing. They don't have to acknowledge the truth for it to be the truth. You are the one in charge. You are the one who gets to make the decisions, whether they acknowledge that or not. So that's the first thing. You can end the argument anytime you want to. And the second is what I alluded to, but now let me name it for you. It's called the broken record method. A lot of times arguments go into feeding into content, which I talked about in the first question I answered today. But that feeding into content where it starts as a discussion about one thing, and then this person brings up something unrelated that happened in the past, and now we're arguing about that, and then it spirals into all this chaotic stuff. You can minimize that or eliminate it altogether by using this method called the broken record method. And all it is just continuing to repeat the same thing over and over and over like a broken record. I used the example of I'm done discussing this. You can just say that continuously, and maybe the child even escalates the things that they are saying, or they are escalating even how hateful or hurtful they are being with their speech. That's okay. Just continue to repeat back that broken record. You can address that speech behavior at another time, but right now it needs to remain about what the discussion started about, not spiraling into more and more things. You can decrease that spiraling by using the broken record method. I'm done discussing this. Or you can say, I know you're really frustrated, but that's my answer. I know you're really frustrated, but that's my answer. Oh, and I hate you and you are the worst. And I know you're really frustrated, but that's my answer. And you just say it plainly. You don't start yelling it. You don't start screaming it. It doesn't need to turn into more of a thing. You just continue to say that same phrase over and over and over again. And what that signals to the child is, this is not a discussion. This is not going to change based on how long we talk. I am done. I've made the decision. That's it. And you can just keep repeating that same phrase, and they'll even catch on and they'll start to say, you only say that one stupid thing. And I know you're really upset right now, but I've made my decision. I know you're really upset right now, but I've made my decision. Or I'm done discussing this. I'm done discussing this for now. I'm done discussing this for now. And you're the worst, and I'm done discussing this for now. And that's it. Just continue to say that. And it tells the child, this is not a negotiation. This is not even a discussion. I've made my choice. We're not going to argue about it, because arguing about it would be pointless, because it's not going to change my mind. I'm done discussing this right now. If you can do those two things, if you can remember that you get to end the argument whenever you want, and it takes two people to argue. It is not your child arguing with you. It is the two of you in an argument. Remember that. And then the second thing is, keep using that broken record method. Stay calm while you use the broken record method. And then they'll start to see the arguments aren't really worth anything, because nothing's going to change. Great. You all, I am having a lot of fun answering these questions. I think this might turn into the standard format here at Bad Kids Don't Exist. I like doing this. All right, let's go to the next question. Dear Mr. Stu, I attended one of your training sessions over the summer and have been using a lot of the strategies you discussed. I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you so much for saying that. Thank you for your workshops and your YouTube channel. Thank you so much for subscribing, youtube.com/@MrStuTV. And thank you so much for coming to the session and saying such nice things about it. Here's my question. As a teacher, I've noticed that my student, we'll call her Emily, has been having trouble sitting still and focusing in class. Her mother shared with me that she has also been struggling with this behavior at home. As a child therapist, how can you differentiate between typical childhood behavior and ADHD in children like Emily? That is such a great question. And I love that question, because most of the time, a vast majority of the time, if a child is struggling with focusing or sitting still or just being able to maintain that for extended periods of time, it is not because they have ADHD. It is because they are a child who gets bored sometimes. So I love this question about how can you understand if it's just this regular difficulty focusing that all kids face, and this actual disorder where the child has this difficulty across a lot of different areas, and it causes them a lot of problems. There are major differences. The other thing to know is that there are a lot of diagnoses, mental health diagnoses, that cause the person with the diagnosis to not be able to focus for long periods of time, or that cause that person with the diagnosis to fidget more or move around more or have difficulty sitting still and paying attention. There are diagnoses like trauma, PTSD, or there's another one that's just a trauma stressor disorder, or even one that's called adjustment disorder, which is just a big change that happens in a person's life. All of those diagnoses, depression even, anxiety, all of these diagnoses have specifiers that it could, one of the symptoms is not being able to pay attention or some difficulty focusing. Just because a child has difficulty focusing, on one hand, it could just be that the child is a child and they're bored and they're having difficulty paying attention right now. On the other hand, it could be a whole host of things, and most of the time, it is not ADHD. ADHD has more symptoms to it than just not being able to sit still and not being able to focus. There are a lot of symptoms, and the big thing with all of those symptoms is they have to be present in a lot of different areas in the child's life. It has to be happening at home and at school. And if they go to church, it has to be happening at church. If they go to camp, it has to be happening at camp. If they are in a daycare, it has to be happening at the daycare. It needs to be across a lot of different areas that the child goes to, not just they have trouble paying attention at school. So that's one major way to understand if it's ADHD or just boredom or just a kid being a kid is this happening in all areas of their life, or at least most areas of their life, even when the thing is really fun? Are they having difficulty engaging with it because they just can't seem to pay attention to it? Now, on the other hand, if your child is experiencing those things in a lot of different domains, that's important, but it's also important to note if it's causing the child distress. If it is just that the adults in the child's life are frustrated with this child's behavior, or if it is just that it's harder to manage this child, then it's not actually a disorder. It's not a disorder unless it causes the person disorder or dysfunction in their life. It has to be in a lot of different areas, and it has to be causing them problems. If those things aren't present, then you're probably dealing with just a child who's just having fairly typical child behavior. I'm seeing, Cassie, that you wrote in that ACEs should be used as a screener by more pediatricians and schools. Yes, when those behaviors are popping up in either suddenly or across, or if it's not across environments, ACEs are adverse childhood experiences. And so many times we jump straight to could be ADHD because this kid can't sit still and focus. It's got to be ADHD. That's not the case. It could be these adverse childhood experiences. Thank you so much, Cassie. It could be these traumatic things that have happened that are causing the child's brain to not be able to sit still and focus. So it's got to be across all these different domains, and it has to be causing the child discomfort. If it's not causing the child discomfort, then it's not a disorder for the child. It's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So if it's not causing any type of disorder, if it's not causing a real problem for the child, then it's not a disorder for the child. It could be that they're having difficulty paying attention, they have difficulty sitting still, but it doesn't cause them any problems. If it doesn't cause them any problems, it's not causing disorder, therefore it's not a disorder. It's really important to remember that. So take all that into account, and then just know that as a teacher, you can't diagnose. It takes a lot of nuance and social work. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and even children's mental health. It is an art and a science altogether. And so, yes, there are these lists of symptoms that we use to diagnose a child's difficulty, but it's not a perfect mathematical problem. It's not anything like that. It requires some nuance and some real understanding of these things. So if you are concerned about a child, then you can talk with that child's parent and let them know specifically what you see. Don't try to guess at what that means. Just list what you see. And you're trained for this as a teacher. You get trained in this all the time, that it's not your job to diagnose, that it's not your job to tell the parent what the problem is. It's your job to tell the parent the behaviors that you're noticing. Or if you're a parent who either hears about these behaviors or witnesses these behaviors in your child, then it's good to have your child assessed. Now, here's what I can also say. I have children come into my office all the time who are misdiagnosed with ADHD, and they were diagnosed by a licensed practitioner of mental health services. It's unfortunate. Sometimes therapists get it wrong. I told you that it's kind of this art and science blended together. So here's the other caveat to what I'm telling you is it's really important if you have concerns about your child because you're seeing these things in all sorts of different areas and it is causing disorder for the child, then it's important to take your child in to be assessed and diagnosed with whatever may be going on. But if you say your first few sentences and the therapist says, oh yes, that's ADHD, it might be time to find somebody who understands a little bit more about the nuance of diagnoses. So let's put all that together. ADHD and just normal childhood behavior, to distinguish between the two, you have to be seeing these behaviors in all sorts of different environments, not just one environment where the child is bored. And then the other thing is it needs to be causing the child disorder. If it is, then it's important to go in and be assessed for any host of the number of things that I mentioned that might be going on. Cassie has written in again, conversely, particularly for AFAB individuals, the hyperactivity may be internal. Yes, and you'd have no idea how much they're suffering, just to make it even more complicated. Yes, thank you so much, Cassie, for that reminder too. That fidgetiness or that restlessness is a symptom of depression because the brain just can't seem to settle down. Restlessness is a symptom of anxiety. Restlessness is a symptom of trauma. Restlessness is a symptom of autism spectrum disorder. All those things. So if you just have a fidgety kid, or if you just have a kid who's having trouble paying attention during math class that they don't enjoy, it doesn't mean they have ADHD. It means there might be just a very typical kid who is struggling to pay attention at times, or it could be any number of other things that are going on. Thank you so much for that question. And I love that you are wanting to make sure that it's not just they're having trouble focusing, so it's got to be ADHD. Let's go to this next question. Dear Mr. Stu, as a concerned parent, I've noticed that my child has been making unhealthy food choices lately. Despite my efforts to educate them on the importance of a balanced diet, they still prefer to eat junk food and sugary snacks. Yes, don't we all? This worries me as a parent because I want my child to develop healthy eating habits that will benefit them in the long run. Is there any advice or strategies you can recommend for me to help my child make healthier choices when it comes to eating? Thank you for all your content. Well, thank you for watching the content. That means a lot to me. This is another big one. Man, I love, these are like some big questions that I get fairly often. So isn't it encouraging to know that there are other parents, there are other caregivers dealing with the same things that you are dealing with? Because if one person wrote this question into me, that there are tons more people who have the question and just didn't write it in. I love this question, and it is one that I get asked fairly frequently, to the point where even recently I went and got connected with a food expert, or a eating disorder expert. That's what I should say. An eating disorder expert who was able to talk with me even more about how to help children make healthy choices when it comes to eating. So let me tell you the main thing that can help a child make healthier choices when it comes to eating is to make the healthy thing be the easy thing. And I'll talk about that with food, but I'll also share with you that that's how you kind of help kids learn to do everything. You make the thing that you want them to do the easy thing. With food, it looks like this. It's rather than just having tons of bags of individual chips and cookies and everything like that on hand, and then making the apples that you have be dirty apples that need to be washed off and sliced up before a child can eat it. Well, when a child is hungry, they're just going to go for that lowest common denominator. What's the easiest thing that I can just reach and grab? It's the chips, it's the cookies. You want to make the thing that you want them to do be just as easy. So it could be something as simple as each week preparing some fruit cups or something like that, or even buying the individual fruit. Now that can be expensive, so I don't blame you if you don't want to like buy the individual thing, but make it as easy as it would be to grab the chips. And if you'll do that, then it becomes an easier choice. If a child says, I'm really hungry, I want a snack, and then they think about all the steps that they're going to have to take to make something healthy, that's not something they're going to want to do. They're going to want to just grab the quick and easy fix. So we as the adults have to help them. Then over time, we can start to take off some of those things that we've done that have made it easier. But at first, and as they're learning and as they're developing, it could be that they're at a developmental stage where they're not ready to do all of those things on their own just yet. But as we are helping them to learn these things and be able to implement them, then we need to make it easier for them. So it could be buying carrot sticks rather than having whole carrots with still the stems on them, which is hilarious like Bugs Bunny. But having carrot sticks, having grapes, having berries, going ahead and slicing apples or peeling oranges, whatever it might be, so that the healthy thing is right there to grab, just like the unhealthy thing is right there to grab. If you'll do that, then you can start to shift them towards that healthier thing because it's just as easy, and you can limit the intake on the more unhealthy option. But let's talk about how you can do this in other areas as well. I was recently talking to a parent who was struggling with their child lying fairly often. And I started to explain this concept to them to make the thing you want them to do the easy thing for them to do. And a lot of times we want kids to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. But that's really hard, and it's really scary for kids when they think about actually doing that. So even in telling the truth, you can make it easier for the child. It's not that you want to lead them. It's not that you want it to be just as simple as saying, yes, that's what I did. Please shut up and let's end this conversation. You don't want it to be like that, but you can make it a little bit easier by giving them the benefit of the doubt or by helping them save face, even though there's going to be some trouble about what they're about to share with you. So it could be that they got in trouble at school during the day, and rather than sitting them down in front of you and saying, tell me what happened at school today, your teacher called me, tell me what happened, that's going to be really hard. That's really hard to do the thing you want them to do. But if you can sit down calmly with them and you can say, hey, I heard that there was some trouble at school today. Here's what your teacher told me. What do you think about that? Do you see how that makes it so much easier to at least start telling the truth? Or if your child is struggling with cleaning up their room, maybe you get out the cleaning supplies for them to start. I'm not saying you're going to have to do that for the rest of their life. A lot of times people say, oh, well, we need to stop coddling these kids. They're going to grow up to be kids who can't do any, adults who can't do anything. And that's true. If you continue that same strategy for their whole life, yes, they're going to end up needing somebody to get the cleaning supplies out for them. What I'm saying is if you have an 8-year-old who needs to learn how to clean their room, maybe you can help them out a bit by getting out the supplies. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that when they are 17, you're going to need to get out everything for them so that they'll clean their room. That's not it. But as they're learning, let's make the thing we want them to do easier for them. So maybe you get out the cleaning supplies. Maybe you clean alongside of them to start so that they can even see what your expectations of this cleaning thing is. It can be any number of things, but with any behavior that you are teaching your child that you want your child to do more, think how difficult is it for them to do this thing that I'm asking them to do? Is it really hard? Is it really intimidating? Could it be scary? If the answers to those questions are yes, then it's less likely they're going to be able to do it. Not that they're not going to want to, or that they're going to be holding up a middle finger to you saying, see, I told you I'm not going to do it. It's not that. It's just hard. It's hard. And we have to help them by making the thing we want them to do easier. All that to come back to food. If you want your child to eat healthier, make sure that the healthy food is easier. And then over time, they'll learn how to do some of those things on their own, and they'll start to be okay with that healthy choice more. And so then they'll be willing to go through a little bit more to get it. And then over time, you can release some of those safeguards that you've put up. But especially as a child is learning, help them by making it an easy thing for them to do. Let's see, we have gone for about 35 minutes now. I'm going to do one more question and then I'm going to wrap up for today. But I have loved this. You know what? I'm going to do 2 more questions today. 2 more, because I like both of these next ones. Okay. 2 more questions. I really have enjoyed this format. I think I'm going to keep doing it just like this. So make sure you tune in each week and I'll answer some more questions for you. Let's look at this one. Dear Mr. Stu, thank you for all your content. I am obsessed with your shorts and I am able to use a lot of the things you teach as I handle my own children and the ones I work with as a teacher's aide. Well, thank you so much for watching, for tuning in, for using the strategies and the different things that I talk about. And thank you for the work that you do as a teacher's aide. I know that is really tough. I know school just started back here in Louisville. I'm not exactly sure where you are coming from, but school's just getting going. So I'm sure that your life is more hectic now than it was over the summer. Let's see what they go on to say. I'm writing to you to ask a question about my child's therapy sessions, okay? Recently, my child has been exhibiting disruptive behavior at home and at school. However, during their therapy sessions, they never seem to bring up these issues. Yes, this is one that I hear all the time. They never seem to bring up these issues. As a parent, I'm worried that they are not addressing their behavior and it may continue to escalate. Can you please explain why a therapist does not talk to my child about the disruptive things they have been doing? Thanks so much. I'll be watching. Fantastic question. And this is one that I get asked all the time because I use techniques that are called play therapy techniques. And using play therapy is even more that whole, like, what are you even doing? How is this even working? How is this helping? This happens all the time where parents want to know, listen, I told you they got in a fight at school. Why are you not sitting them down and talking to them about the fight they had at school? Let me break it down for you. The simplest way that I can put it is by saying, if you can see it, it's not the problem. That's it. If you can see it, it's not the problem. So if you are seeing behaviors, that is a problem, but it's not the problem. If you have a child who's getting in fights constantly, the fights are a problem, but it's not the problem. If you have a child with low self-esteem and so they're starting to lash out at other people, do you see the low self-esteem is the problem? The lashing out is the behavioral response to the problem. As a therapist, all the time people want me to sit down with their kids and give them a lecture about why the thing that they did was bad and what they can do in the future if it comes up again. But really what I need to do is find the root cause of this behavior, of this problem that we're seeing, so that we can eliminate all of the problems associated with it. If I sit a child down and talk to them about the fight they had at school and why the fight was a bad choice and all that stuff, then I'm only dealing with that one thing. And because the underlying issue is still going on, could be that they stop fighting, but it's going to pop up somewhere else. They're going to start arguing more, or they might even start doing something more extreme because that underlying thing is still there. Children's behavior is how they communicate. So if they're showing disruptive behaviors, it's because their mind is disrupted somehow. So what we have to do as the adults in their life is we have to show them that we see there's a reason for their behavior, that we understand they are not just bad kids doing bad things because they like doing bad things and like making us miserable, but they are showing these disruptive behaviors because they're trying to tell us something. Sometimes that message is very simple. I don't like this person. Sometimes that message is very complex. Like, my dad left when I was a kid and now I don't know how to relate to people who care for me. It could be any number of things. My job as a therapist is to get to that root cause of this behavior. So if I'm only addressing the behavior, I'm only ever going to stay on the surface of that thing. Let me give you an example of this. I worked with a child who would get very upset at school and run out of the classroom at school, and even ran out of the school at times. So the teachers and the parent called me and we're all talking about this, and they said, we need him to stop running out of the school. But through our discussion, what we were able to figure out is that this little boy has very low resilience, that when he started to get upset, his immediate response was just to leave that environment because he just couldn't deal. He couldn't handle what was going on. So in play therapy, what I did is, rather than focusing on not running out of the classroom, I focused on building his resilience. And he kept challenging me to different board games that I have. Connect Four, he wanted to play tic-tac-toe. We played all sorts of different things, and he wanted to keep challenging me. But Stoic, no, this is not pre-recorded. I am live right now. But he wanted to show me, hey, I'm struggling with this. I'm dealing with this right now. And I need to build up this tolerance for frustration for when things don't go my way. Now, if I had only addressed running out of the classroom, that low resilience is going to pop up in other places. But if I deal with that low level of resilience, then I'm dealing with all the other issues that pop up no matter what is going on. So I need to target the root cause of the behavior, not just the behavior that you can see. The other thing to think of is with therapy, we have a term that's called unconditional positive regard. What that means is, no matter what you did, I am here for you and I am excited to see you. When we are constantly just bringing up the things that the child has done that were disruptive or harmful or hurtful, then what it tells them is that's the picture that they have of me. They look at me as this hurtful, harmful person. And that's not the message that we want to convey, because it's not the truth about what we believe about our clients. We believe that our clients have things going on that cause them to behave in these different ways, but we don't believe that someone is bad or broken because they have done something inappropriate or done something disruptive. So I need to show this child I accept you no matter what you have done throughout the week. Also, just another adult with a lecture isn't going to do anything. If you've already talked to your child about why this thing was bad and what they can do again in the future, then I don't need to have that same conversation with them. We're just rehashing something and bringing up something that the child doesn't have any interest in. And we're also not targeting the real problem that's going on. I understand it can be frustrating as a parent because you just want a quick fix. You want these behaviors to stop, and that's just not how mental health works. Mental health works as a process, and there's a lot of things that go into it every single session. It's that consistency, and that consistency is what will cause the change, because that consistency is what allows us to get to the root cause of these disruptive things. And then as we're consistent and as we provide support in the areas that the child needs support, then we'll start to see that behavior change as we deal with the root cause. And because we're dealing with the root cause, it won't pop up in other places. It will just, that behavior will go away and there won't be another one that just pops up to replace it. Hopefully that's helpful in understanding why a therapist might not directly address to a child, especially some of the disruptive things that they were doing. If you can see it, it's not the problem. Let's see here. One more. Dear Mr. Stu, thank you so much for your channel and for your workshops. I attended one this summer and had a great time. Thanks so much. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hopefully some of the things that you learned, you've been able to use. I'm writing to you because I have a question about my child. There have been some concerns raised by both myself and my partner and some school staff to the point where I think my child may need mental health medication. I was wondering, what are the steps to get my child medication? Any help you can provide is much appreciated. I'll be watching. Thanks so much. Thank you very much for watching the channel. And this is a question that I get all the time about mental health medication. So let me kind of break it down for you. Do not think that medication should be the first thing that we incorporate into a child's mental health plan. I think it should be one of the very last things that we incorporate, if we choose to incorporate it at all. And there's many, many reasons for that, but a big one to remember is that medication is not a solution to a problem. Mental health medication doesn't make the thing go away or make the thing stop. Mental health medication is typically used to support a person who is so dysregulated or has so much disorder going on that they cannot receive the actual therapeutic help, that it prepares their brain to accept and be able to work with that therapeutic help. It is not a solution to things like ADHD and depression and anxiety. They can help support a person who is dealing with those diagnoses, but it does not make those diagnoses go away. And many times parents believe that things like ADHD, it should just be, let's give them a pill and then they're going to be able to focus. So medication is not a solution to the problem. It's a piece in a very intricate puzzle, and it's meant to be used for support, not as a solution. Another thing to remember is that medication, especially in my opinion and in the opinion of many trusted people that I work with, medication is for danger, not discomfort. If it is just an uncomfortable feeling of anxiety, or even an uncomfortable feeling of depression, or an uncomfortable ability to not be able to focus, whatever it might be, if it's just discomfort, we need to manage that through therapy and through other supports. Medication is meant for those danger situations where it would be dangerous for us to not provide this level of care for this person. Otherwise, something really intense could happen. And it doesn't have to be that it's a death or anything like that, but it would be something bad, something really bad will happen if we don't get this person stabilized. And that's a word to remember, stability. If the person cannot stabilize without medication, that is a time to introduce medication. If they are unsafe, then that is a time to introduce medication. But if it's just discomfort, it does not mean medication needs to be the answer. Another thing to remember is that there are no mental health medications that were made for children. None of the medications were made for children. There are medications that work better with children. There are medications that over time we have figured out work even better with children than they do with adults. But none of these medications were designed for children. And the reason I mention that is because every mental health medication has a long list of side effects, potential side effects and probable side effects. So it's important to keep in mind that if you introduce a medication, it could be that you deal with one of the problems that is going on and then another one pops up because of the medication. And that is why it's important to not just add medication or throw medication because there's some discomfort. Because if you throw medication at discomfort, that one discomfort may go away, but it's going to cause another, likely more extreme discomfort because of a side effect of the medication. So keep all of that in mind. And that when you keep all of that in mind, try therapy first. Therapy with a good therapist, a licensed therapist, someone who really knows what they're doing. Try that first. With my clients, I have a policy that they have to work with me for at least 3 months before we will choose to introduce medication, unless it's a situation of dangerous behavior or something where something really bad could happen. Then we'll talk about it. But for the most part, they have to work with me for about 3 months before we'll introduce medication. Most of the time, that therapy is good enough. And it could be they need to continue in therapy, but now they've learned over this 3 months of therapy to mitigate some of those symptoms that they were feeling. And so now they don't feel the need to introduce that medication. Had we introduced medication right at first, then we would have introduced the medication. We wouldn't have known what help the therapy was doing and what help the medication was doing. And then there also would have been these side effects that were popping up on the other side of things. It causes a whole mix of difficulties when you introduce medication too early, or if you feel like medication is a solution, because it's not. So try therapy first. If you do that and it's not working, or the behaviors are still extreme, ask yourself a couple questions. First off, is this a good therapist? That's an important question to ask. And second, okay, now that I'm still seeing all these things, would it be helpful to have a discussion about introducing medication? But medication should not be the first thing that we introduce. Medication should not be the only thing that we introduce. And it should be with the understanding that medication is not a solution. It's part of a support system. And we're going to need to keep that system going. And then hopefully over time, we can back off some of that medication. Keep all of that in mind. And I would say if you have concerns that your child needs mental health medication, your real concern is that your child needs mental health help. And if you have that concern that your child needs mental health help from a professional, take them to a professional. Get them assessed, get them diagnosed, and be very wary of therapists who want to introduce medication the first time they get to meet you. If that's what they're doing, I just don't trust it very much. That's just my opinion. So thank you all so much for writing in those questions. I actually have tons more. There are lots more as I'm scrolling on my iPad. There are lots more questions. I loved doing this. I loved answering questions in this Q&A format to the point where I think this is going to be just the series that I do. Tune in again next week. I'll just plan to be live Fridays at 3 p.m. as long as my schedule allows. I do travel all over the country, all over the world as a keynote speaker and a workshop leader to help adults better understand kids so that kids and their caregivers thrive. I love doing that. If that sounds like a good fit for you and your next event, then reach out to me. You can head over to badkidsdon'texist.com/booking, and there you'll find all the information you need to hire me as a keynote speaker or a workshop leader. I would love to partner with you and help you, your team, support the kids that are so dependent on you, the ones who need you the most. Also, be sure to check out and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Over 1,000 subscribers now. Woo! youtube.com/@MrStuTV. And then you can find me on all social media channels at Mister Stu TV. I am most active on Facebook and Instagram. So check me out there. Facebook.com/@MrStuTV. Instagram.com/@MrStuTV. I don't know why I said it like it's a website. You can go in the Instagram app and just type Mister Stu TV. That's MisterStutv. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, remember, some things exist, some things don't. Bad kids don't exist. And I will see you again next week. Peace.